Is there too much chest hair? Maybe let's discuss that in the podcast. Maybe.
Please keep that in. That's the blooper.
Netflix cold start.
That's the blooper reel. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Men's Manual podcast. I'm your host, Sean Stafford, and today we are joined by a very special guest, comedian, thinker, all-round good guy, Mr. Josh Berry.
I like thinker. That's great.
But it's one of those ones where I've got to know you quite well over the last 6 months, and it's one of the things which most people, I'd say, wouldn't necessarily know about you from watching your meteoric rise on social media. And this is the Men's Manual, right? So we're here to talk about all things men's health, sort of the struggles that men feel today, pressures of social media, mental health, all these sort of things. And I'd say over the last 6 months, when we've spent time together, I always come away feeling like I've thought a little bit more about the subject. So I thought you'd be the perfect guest to get on the podcast to talk about anything and everything that the modern man might be struggling with in today's modern crazy world.
Well, firstly, that is incredibly nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Look at this non-toxic start to the podcast. That's lovely. I do think a lot about men. I thought
we'll leave it there.
No, not like that. But that's fine if you want to, obviously. But yeah, no, it's something I think very, very deeply about. Ask me a question, Sean. That's an easier way into this, I think.
Okay, so you've had a fairly meteoric rise, especially on social media. Your day job is you're a comedian, you're a writer, you're a content creator. For somebody that potentially doesn't know where that all begins, how did you get started in that world?
I mean, it started for me with impressions, really. I mean, we do a lot for people that don't know, Sean very charitably trains me in the gym, and we do a lot of impressions during the sessions, don't we? And that's where it started for me. Like as a kid, I used to do Johnny Vegas was the first person I used to do to my mum. And then my voice broke and I couldn't do it anymore. And
right.
But I just would, I used to do a lot of that, and I was mad about tennis. Played tennis all my life from sort of the age of 10. And I started doing Nadal, actually. That was the first one I did. And I just remember every interview, he would just say the same thing. And he'd always be like, well, thank you very much. I am very happy. So thanks a lot. And I remember doing that to my mum and I'd be like, that's pretty good. And then gradually doing more and more of that and then putting it online. And this is back in sort of 2013. So this is back the days of, so on YouTube, you could just put something up, and we put up a video of me doing different tennis players. Within a week, Djokovic had shared it. And I was in like sixth form at this point, so I was loving it. And then I kind of just kept doing versions of that, I think. So that's how it started. And then, you make it a bit more tactical when you're trying to get people to come to shows. And I started doing stand-up like after university, but that was kind of how I got into it. But it's such a strange, it's just such a made-up career,
Yeah.
that I'm like, I don't really know. The path seems kind of strange.
Is there a moment where you felt like you had a big break? Was there like a video that went particularly viral, or a job that you got that kind of was a launch pad for all the success that you've had in the last couple of years?
I think when I was 16, I was getting a lot of attention, like around Wimbledon, and I was able to do, I did an impression of Nadal to Nadal, which was horrifically awkward, but did well online, basically. Yeah. And I was this sort of weird 17-year-old. But I don't know, I sometimes wonder whether that's a bit of a myth. I think it's just continual. You just got to continually have big moments. Or that's what I found anyway. That like you have a sort of a cluster of good things, and then maybe things get a bit quieter, and then it comes again and again. But yeah, it's that thing of like, an overnight success is just plenty of versions of something happening. That's kind of how it's felt for me.
And in terms of, so if anyone listening or watching online, what platforms do you kind of play on? Like what's kind of your most enjoyable platform? Where do you get the most sort of success and positive feedback?
Definitely not Twitter, which which is X now. I mean, like in lockdown, that was really good because I think if you were selling a particularly kind of angry brand of comedy, it was very helpful, and you'd find your audience very quickly. So at that time, kind of 2019, 2020, I was doing a character called Rafe Hubris, who was a mockery of a kind of Oxbridge public school bluffer type person. And the joke was that he was advising Boris Johnson, and there'd be phone calls. There would be videos of him phoning Boris Johnson and being like, "Hey mate, we've just fucked everyone over. Isn't that hilarious?" And people like that on Twitter. But as time went on, it was just such a horrible, toxic cesspit, Twitter.
Yeah.
That I kind of decided to not do that as much. But I think, Instagram mostly, Instagram and TikTok, those feel like, particularly Instagram feels more like a sort of community where you can really engage people, you know? There's less horrible people on there.
So if we're looking at you away from necessarily the digital side of things, I think being a stand-up comic is probably, for a lot of people listening, would be absolutely terrifying because you've got to be able to, you've got to stand on stage in front of a load of people and be able to hold the room, but also then walk the tightrope of being funny but not cancelable. Like, how do you sort of deal with the pressure of that part of your job?
I think it's an interesting one, isn't it, cancel culture now? Because I think certainly in 2017 and maybe a bit beyond, people were really getting mullered for things they said. I don't know whether I feel like now you can get away with a lot of stuff. I feel like it's just about how you have to sit close to the line of what's acceptable, but it's how cleverly you're able to kind of play around with that. And The Office actually is a very good example of something where they're saying and touching on bigotry or whatever, but the scaffolding is so sophisticated that they're able to do it with enough irony such that it's kind of aged fine now, you know? And so I think...
Whereas other things that are out there just definitely haven't aged well. Like you look back at Little Britain.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like... And it wasn't even that long ago. It's like, how did they get away with this?
Or Come Fly With Me. Although actually, I watched obviously there's some bad stuff in Come Fly With Me. But... there are some good sketches in that. Do you remember that there's the husband-wife pilot duo, and he had an affair, and she can't let him forget it? It was great. There was good stuff in that. But yeah, I mean, comedy rarely ages that well. But if you've done enough work around it, like Borat, I actually think is aged pretty well. Yeah, it manages to be fine now.
It's what we call a timeless classic.
Yeah. Like, it's so controversial, but because you feel like, on aggregate, he's allowed to get away with it, right? Because he's like arguably trying to expose bigotry. So you're sort of like, on the whole, you let him get away with it. Yeah. But I don't know. It's the process of being a stand-up comedian is, it is a weird job. Like, what kind of insane, deranged psychopath thinks that it's like a good idea to stand in front of people? Yeah, career, or like, yes, I am worthy of talking in front of all these people. But it's normally people with, big egos and low self-esteem, I would say, is the general interesting paradox that you see in comedians. Yeah. It's like, I recognize in myself that, like, I think I have worthwhile things to say, but I also need people to tell me that those things are worthwhile. So there's a tension I think you see in most comics in that way.
Very deep. So if
that's how you set me up.
Yeah. If we're pulling back and we're trying to give some of the people listening, some of the guys listening, a little bit of a Josh Berry stand-up comedy cheat sheet of how to walk into a party, be at a dinner party or something like that, and not only be able to hold attention but be funny. Yeah. Is there a formula for funny?
Well, I think the stuff I do is so complicated and brilliant that there can never be a formula, Sean. But I would say, a lot of my stuff is geared around observation, and so I've always found when I've been around sort of particular groups of people, particularly kind of posh men and I know I am a posh man, but particularly posh men, I've always sort of been like, I want you to look at yourselves. You need to recognize how absurd and ridiculous you are.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my comedy, I think, is about feeding back aspects of people that are ridiculous and that do need to be laughed at, I think, and getting them to see themselves, which is, what kind of has really driven the desire to do a show about men. It's that I think there are so many things that men do that are comical and ridiculous and require a degree of laughter.
So your tour and your show is called Best Man.
Yeah.
And it's about a guy getting married and the dynamics around a wedding.
Yes.
Run me through the premise of the show.
So I mean, my best friend got married last year, and the show is basically about the process of me being asked to be the best man, but then also there being multiple best men, and my own repressed attitude to that, and my own kind of male emotional journey, I guess. But interspersed through that is a lot of stuff about how I think you're supposed to be a good man now, and how that is undeniably an enormous clusterfuck, for want of a better term. It feels like we've eroded a lot of male role models, and we're kind of left in this after period where there aren't clear answers. And so I'm trying to sort of dance around in that nuanced area, basically, and be like, what's a good man now? I don't know. But
well, I think let's stick with that. In your opinion, what is a good man now?
I think, and this is something that's so lost in the discourse online, moderation and nuance are so important. And I love, and I know I'm falling into a stereotype here, but I love Aragorn so much because I think Lord of the Rings. Aragorn, he's great because he's so many seemingly contradicting things, right? Like he's incredibly loyal, but he's also like a healer, and he's very committed to his partner, but he cares very much about sort of protecting the weakest people. I think that's an aspect, because it's not algorithm friendly, right? To be like, men ought to embrace the shades of grey. I don't think we're seeing that at all in the discourse, and I think that's a real shame. I'm not necessarily saying that in my show. I'm just saying, here are all these, slightly fraught ways that maybe we could be men, and I don't really know what the answer is.
Yeah.
But my actual opinion is, we need to encourage nuance and moderation.
So be more like Aragorn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, find yourself a Frodo.
Yeah, find yourself. Who can you support in your life? Who can you live for? Who can you make sacrifices for? I think Aragorn there's a lot of delayed gratification in Aragorn, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I think we live in a very, self-gratifying society. And who is Andrew Tate? Arguably Sauron. I think he's like a taunting figure of evil, telling men to lean into their very worst selves. And the idea of Aragorn is much more about no, you should improve yourself. You should become a better person.
Yeah. And
you should embrace softness with a desire to sort of do the right thing and all that sort of stuff.
So if we're playing this game of almost caricaturing men in today's society, and we have Andrew Tate, and we're going to put it in the frame of Lord of the Rings, just to keep
God,
it, just
I'm
to
so
keep it
pleased
consistent.
I've steered us that way. That is fantastic.
It's very on brand for
what
you.
I wanted so much.
So if we've got Andrew Tate being the modern day Sauron, who's
Gimli? I don't know.
who is the modern day Aragorn? Who is that guy?
Good question. I mean, I think people who are generally willing to stand up for what they believe in. I always think Marcus Rashford's actually a very good example of that. He strikes me as a guy who got a lot of shit, didn't he, for sticking up for the free school meals thing. That's something he cares about deeply. He's supporting the oppressed. I thought that was great. Do
you? Okay, so that's really interesting, because I'm being a natural cynic. I thought that was just a PR move for him. And I know that he did a lot of good for it, but I would have seen that was an easy win for him. Do you know what I mean? From a public relations point of view.
He's Sauron.
Sorry, so maybe he's Sauron. So you're taking Marcus Rashford, potentially taking an unpopular. The thing with that free school dinner thing, it was quite a popular opinion. So I think what you're trying to get at is maybe sticking up for something you believe in, even in the face of unpopular opinions.
Yeah, I'm such a massive fan of his, but I think Andy Murray is a great example of that as well. He's someone who like was just very honest with who he is, and got a lot of hate for being
he did,
who
didn't
he
he?
is.
Actually, yeah.
And actually, people came to embrace his character, and obviously, Andy Murray's a very moody man. He's not, oozing charisma, but he's actually very funny and a great guy. And I don't know. I think he's a perfect example of that. I guess what I often think about masculinity, or the parts of it that I don't like, the aspects I don't like are the ones that I feel are dishonest. Like people, there's something very performative about it, and people being like, look at how strong I am as a cover for weakness. I have so much respect for men who are willing to just be honest about who they are,
I remember listening to a podcast, and I know that we've talked about it a little bit, that there's this new sort of almost trend of men being vulnerable, and how now vulnerability is this new sort of hill to die on for men. But the podcast I was listening to came from a very different angle, saying that vulnerability without strength isn't masculine.
That's interesting.
So vulnerability coming from a place of weakness is almost like the opposite of masculine.
So how would that look? How would vulnerability without strength look?
So I think it's a really good question. And I think potentially when you see those almost like beta males, those guys, and that vulnerability would come across as from almost like a moaning point of view rather than like a stoic point of view. And I think it boils back down to that, what you were saying about honesty, and like a level of honesty and maybe authenticity being the bedrock for masculinity to be expressed.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think they're definitely. It sounds a bit like what you're saying is maybe like weaponized male incompetence, right? Like men who are sort of not willing to actually try and acquire important skills that matter. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the core of this, the show that I'm doing, is about how vulnerability is in and of itself brave, because I think there's a lot of the sort of central nub of the show is about me resisting telling my best friend that I love him because I'm scared and I find that uncomfortable or whatever, and that authenticity within me, because it's true, I did feel that that required a lot more bravery, I think, than acquiring skill or trying to be competent or whatever. So my personal experience of it as a man has always been like, actually, I'm very afraid of my emotions. I'm very afraid of that acknowledgement. Yeah. And I do think a lot more men would benefit from being encouraged to be authentic in that way.
Okay, so keeping on the track of masculinity. So the way that we know each other is through the gym and through training, and you came to me for a physical, mental, and potentially sexual revitalization at the back end of last year.
Yeah. So to be honest, it did sexually revitalize. Not applied to you, obviously. But, the sexual performance was a lot better as a result. So that feels like a relevant thing to discuss, doesn't it?
Very relevant.
Yeah.
But in terms of what sort of stimulated you or motivated you to sort of get in touch and make a change around your physical being?
I've always been quite into control. It's a theme in my life. I'm maybe a little bit too obsessed with control, but I like discipline and structure. And I think that, the reality of doing a creative job is that doesn't exist for you. That's one of the challenges, right? It's amazing in so many different ways, but I missed that. And I missed the kind of, what I said at the time, and I think is true. What it gave me was the virtues that come from hard work and the challenge physically would transcend into the rest of my life. And I felt like I was kind of at a stage where, I'd done very well. I'd sold a lot of tickets and stuff, but I kind of wanted to get a bit more of a sense of oomph. I felt maybe a bit I don't know, soggy, and I looked a bit soggy as well.
Well, we did call you. So so the first phase in Josh's training was a lot of it was to do with getting him fit and
Slimmer. You can say
healthy,
slimmer.
and to try and lose some of the excess weight. But Josh, you're a sweater.
I'm a
sweater.
I'm a real sweater, and that's genetic. I can't do
Is it?
anything about that. I'm just a sweaty, as my old housemate used to call me, a sweaty hog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did nickname you the Soggy Oak.
Yeah, that's a bit nicer than a sweaty hog.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, I'm a sweater for sure.
But what was it? Was there something in you? Because you're the right side of 30.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
Just.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there something about sort of being a man approaching 30 that you wanted to embrace some of the physical elements of? Would you say it's masculinity, or was it just something you needed for your life?
I don't know if I'd necessarily say it was masculinity. I think it was just I wanted to, well, maybe that is masculine, but just to get more of a sense of competence, be like I'm more on top of things in general. Also if you're in a front-facing job, you want to look good, right? And you're like, oh man, I'm not happy necessarily with, I was pretty athletic as a younger man. I also was like, as a 28-year-old, it feels like the sort of last chance. Things start to decline after that, right? I was like, I want to be in the best shape of my life for a bit. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that in so many ways, that's way broader than our sessions. It's the kind of just lack of sort of instant gratification. I used to train very much like, right, I'm just going to go to the gym and then just kill myself for 3 hours and eat nothing. And then it's like, yeah, you get ill, congratulations, and you make no progress. And just the kind of very measured, moderate, but consistent approach was so helpful outside of just my body.
Yeah, and did you start to, so obviously there was some pretty substantial changes in the first 3-4 months. Did you feel that with those changes that people started to interact with you differently, or did people notice?
I don't know, it's a weird one because I think when you don't have your top off, I would say, even though it's very clear to us that I became a lot leaner, I'd say some people maybe wouldn't, if you're wearing like baggy clothing or whatever, people can't necessarily tell. But it changed me in a lot of ways. I mean, it made me realize it makes you realize how so often as a man you're running from stuff, or I was anyway.
Yeah.
Again, a theme of my show was how much in the show I run from my emotions. I was doing that in my life. I was drinking to numb, the pet that my granddad had just died. I was drinking because I was very sad about that.
Yeah.
You're drinking because you're anxious, right? And then you get more anxious because you've been drinking, and then the cycle just repeats. And it's like, it felt like a very good way to break that for myself. In the other areas of my life that I'm successful in, I'm able to tolerate discomfort. Coming up with new material and doing a new show is just basically being shit for like an hour, and just being able to deal with the embarrassment. And I was like, I should do that in other areas. And yeah, that kind of, for me, all cumulatively came together and meant that I made the decision. Yeah.
So you kind of putting your health, wellness, fitness at the center of the village. What impact has that had on the rest of your life? Like, where's the carryover been? I
mean, it's definitely meant I'm much less drawn to alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, you see how much the sort of running, you're just less attracted to running because you're like running from your feelings, because one is getting good feelings from working out, right? And doing it in a way that you can tell is positive. I'd say a lot of the aspects of my character that I noticed that alcohol kind of drummed up, I noticed that I was a lot less self-pitying as a result of exercising more.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really want to go back to being the person that is sort of, wallowing endlessly. And that's not even from a place of not feeling my emotions. I actually felt more present to be able to feel what I felt and then move through stuff. So I was just really surprised that, without wanting to sound like without wanting to sound like Stephen Bartlett, I feel like I had more capacity to grow as a person.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously a big part of your sort of persona online and a big part of your skits that you do Very, very funny, by the way, if you guys haven't noticed. Where are you on Instagram?
Josh Berry Comedy is the vessel.
Is the vessel.
Yeah, that's where it's all happening.
So Josh is a very, very talented impressionist, and something that I like to do is just ask you. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to tell you the voice that I want you to do the answer back to me. And so
just all Jordan Peterson, I'm hoping.
I love his Jordan Peterson impression. So that is in there. That is in my list.
Okay, good.
But I think it'd be a really fun thing to do. So we're going to keep with the health and fitness term. And just as a thing, I haven't given him these ahead of time. So this is completely off the cuff.
Yeah, no, very much off the cuff.
So we're going to stick with the weight training and the health and fitness, and I want you to do it in the voice of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay, nice.
Okay. So, Josh, how's your journey?
Just as a caveat, I've probably got about 5 words in this impression, but I'll get through them all.
Okay,
this is good.
So, how has training and joining a gym impacted your life?
I've tried with Sean Stefford's help to get the pump every 5 times a week. It's better than coming. I started off, I was fat. Now look at me, I'm shredded. It's not my best one to start on that one, but I thought that was all right.
Okay, so now we're gonna mix it up and we're gonna go down nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're gonna do in the kitchen.
Okay.
What you're cooking to eat healthy, how your nutrition's changed, and I want you to do it in the voice of Gordon Ramsay.
Okay, well, Sean, fuck me, Jesus Christ. The foods I have been eating, 6 to 8 eggs, yes, every morning. Parmesan cheese, incredibly protein rich, perfect for making fucking gains, okay? Then, some sort of meat, supplementing that with legumes or some sort of grain, yes, quinoa, possibly some salmon for dinner, and fuck me, I'm massive now. Wow.
Very good. Okay, so now we'll switch it up. Let's talk about toxic masculinity, and there's only one person that I want to hear. I want to hear toxic masculinity in the voice of Jordan Peterson.
Well, the first bloody question is, what do you bloody mean by toxic? You know, that's just a bloody ideological term that's been created by the bloody Marxists. And hey, let's bloody talk about that. The bloody I can't bloody this is a bloody nightmare. Hey.
It's just saying bloody. That's all I have with Jordan Peterson. It's just,
well, that, and
I saw online someone say Jordan Peterson is like a stepdad trying to discipline a child. That's his whole persona, and I think that's exactly. There's no argument with him anymore. It's just,
well, you think you can bloody do that? Well, you bloody can't, because who could bloody? No, you just can't.
And you're like, there's no analysis anymore with him.
But he's actually launched his own like parenting channel and product and service.
Has he really?
Yeah, so he's really leaned
You're bloody going to bed so you don't become a bloody left winger.
Oh, exactly. But I think one of his most viral videos, and not the one that's my favorite, which is when he's always crying. His one where he's talking about how you've got a child for such a short period of time, and that every parent should learn to sort of embrace it. And that was kind of like, I think, his most watched video, and his most, the audio has been used more times on Instagram than any other video out there.
Yeah.
And I think off the back of that, he's launched this parenting platform and service where he's basically interviewing parents and advising them on how to be better parents.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting man, isn't he, Jordan Peterson? He's got a lot of demons. Many years ago, I was really into his, like when he was lecturing at Harvard. It was very interesting, and he had some great stuff to say. I feel like more recently, there's been a little bit of a decline on. I think he spoke to Tommy Robinson on his podcast.
I think he lost you at Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, he lost me at Tommy Robinson. But I don't know. I liked his old message, which was, I think it's so true. Men are desperate to be told, well done. Men are desperate to be encouraged. And I actually think that was a big aspect of adolescence that wasn't that discussed.
Adolescence, the TV show.
Yeah, the Netflix thing. I don't think people were talking about how desperate that little boy was to be told, like, aren't you great? You're fantastic. Here's a blueprint. Follow that. Man, you know, it's why Huberman, it's why Jordan Peterson, not to put them in the same category, but it's why like Huberman's protocol is catnip for men, because we just want to be told like, follow this plan, you know? And like, I don't know, there's also, I think, a real urge in men to like take things to a really extreme place. Like, have you seen all this content online with like guys being like, here I am for a 15-hour flight. I'm just watching the flight log. I'm raw dogging. No books, no music, no water. And it's like there is an urge in men to just push things to this like extreme level, right? But I don't know. I don't disagree with the idea of someone trying to make something for men to follow. I think that's a good thing.
So you do a reasonable Huberman as well, don't you?
Oh yeah.
So let's run through Josh Berry's Get Ready With Me routine in the voice of Andrew Huberman.
Every day I like to start by inserting 4 to 5 carrots anally, just to generally stimulate my body. It's a great way to get out of the parasympathetic and into the sympathetic nervous system. After that, it's mostly getting sunlight into my eyes, cold plunge, and 5 hours of licking algae off the floor. And it is amazing for health. It's amazing for recovery. It's going to absolutely revolutionize your dopaminergic responses to life. Do it today and you'll feel incredible. My guest today is Sean Stafford. Sean Stafford. That's how we start. I mean, every podcast is like, Sean Stafford started at Oxford University before becoming Mr. Olympia. He now trains multiple people. I'm incredibly excited to talk to Sean Stafford. Pause. Sean Stafford. Every time. That is exactly what I'll do. Listen to his podcast every time.
So with your repertoire of impressions, who is your favorite impression to do?
You know, I quite like doing Louis Theroux. I find that a bit interesting to do. I think Louis like most sort of slightly interesting voices to do, he's got many different ways of talking, I'd say. I mean, there's the sort of whispery bit that he does like that, you know, like, is this sort of accurate what I'm doing? And then there's the sort of when he's meeting someone, he's like, how are you doing? How's it going? A bit more standoffish like that. I like doing Louis. I used to like doing John McEnroe. You know, John is so distinctive, you know, like it's just instantly recognizably John. No one else does John. I do John. I mean, come on. Whoa, talk about impressions.
Who else do I do? I like doing Andrew Cotter. Andrew Cotter is a bit more of a sort of niche sporting voice, but I very much enjoy doing it. And also the fantastic thing is that I now start to meet people I do impressions of, and he corrected my impression of him. He said, I kept saying that he would say emerging, and he said that's far too West Coast. That's far too East Coast. I'm more West Coast, and he was like, I'd say emerging, which is apparently a very significant Scottish difference. Who else? Lots of people. God, I've greatly enjoyed doing Peterson. I like doing niche people.
Yeah, you do go a bit niche. So some of the ones that you do, and I'm just like, that's great, but it's like I have no idea who that is.
Yeah,
it's very niche.
Yeah.
But I think one of the cool things about your job, and probably as you've grown in stature and profile, is the ability to do these impressions to the people.
Yeah,
so I saw recently you did one with Louis Theroux, and it was excellent. Like, who, if you were going to drum up like an ideal hit list for celebrities for you to do the impression to, who would be your top 3? Who would be your almost like your Mount Rushmore of?
Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, it's probably the ones I think are probably the most accurate. I mean, I've done Andy Murray a few times, and that's always pretty good, because he's like, I don't think this is a very good impression, and I'm like, I think it's quite a good impression. So that's always good. Who else? Hugh Grant would be quite fun. I think he'd be someone like David Mitchell as well. I think when you can get them to do their mannerism to you, and you're both doing it, I think there's something really fun in that. So like, you know, I think, David Mitchell would be particularly good, because if both of us were just getting incredibly nasal and very angry and just sort of progressively undercutting each other, I think that would be hilarious. So yeah, I mean, he would be a dream. But it's a difficult one to like, know who's current or relevant enough to do, you know?
Yeah.
Because Alain de Botton, I enjoy doing Alain de Botton.
Again, this is one of the very, very niche ones. And I listened to the Modern Wisdom podcast with Alain off your recommendation. And so like when you started doing the Alain impression, I was like, okay, I get it now. But everyone listening will have, well.
It's niche, but I just enjoy, I love the school of life and I love the output and the whole sort of, the only reason we love anyone is because secretly we hate them. But I enjoy, there's something quite sort of British about all that output, it's like, love makes us very unhappy. That's why we seek it. I think there's funny stuff there.
If you're going to give some tips to some of the, again, going back to this is basically like, what was that book written by Neil Strauss? The Game. This is this is like the game for some of the guys listening. Yeah. How to improve their ability at parties or dinner parties. So if you're going to give somebody like a couple of tips on how to perfect impressions, are there any things that they can do which are like easy wins?
Yeah, there are like, I'd say two things on that. I used to think anyone can do impressions. I was like, if you just spend enough time with the voice, anyone can.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true anymore. But that basically you're trying to, the impressionist John Coleshaw says you're trying to download a voice, and I think that's a very good way to think of it. You have to immerse yourself in the person. Just listen. And then you start to build up a picture of them in your head by finding specific phrases or words that are slightly quirky or different. Yeah. Everyone has an accent, but we're inconsistent. Like the way that we speak is very inconsistent. And so, for example, with Andy Murray, what I noticed was that Andy will sort of slow down at the end of a sentence like that. And so if you've sort of got that thing there, then you can start to sort of build something up. So it's like, what are their quirky mannerisms vocally? And then from there, like maybe a bit of physicality if you're doing a bit of Trump, the hands are always good.
Do you do a good Donald Trump?
I mean, it's fine. I think the problem is just like everyone does. But it's like Sean, great guy, phenomenal guy. Believe me, one of the greatest trainers. I've used Sean a lot of times. Believe me, he's so great. Believe me.
I've never seen or heard your Donald Trump. But it's I'd say for you, it's almost like it's the physical mannerisms and the way that you like shape your face and mouth and some of the little idiosyncrasies that physically they have. How important are the physical sort of tics and nuances behind somebody's speech important when delivering an impression?
I think it's often, I mean, their physicality is often a kind of real expression of their character, right? Or the caricature you're trying to feed them into. So it is important. I mean, I always used to with Nadal, there was always him sort of touching his nose and doing that and pulling at his shorts that everyone would recognize. So it definitely is an important thing. Some people are maybe less physically, like Louis Theroux is just sort of, he's just sort of inert. So there's nothing really to do there. But where you can, I think it's always really good. But I mean, the gold standard of that is Jim Carrey used to literally just reshape his whole face.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally turned his, if people don't know what I'm talking about, type in Jim Carrey's unnatural act on YouTube. He turns his face into Clint Eastwood. He turns his face into, it's amazing. It's like he's possessed. I've never seen anything like that.
Is that something that you'll be building more into your routines and your acts when you go on tour?
It's it's a really good thing to try and do. I think it's amazing if you can. I don't know if I have that skill. I think I'm very good with the voice, but I think there's something about that I can't even get my head around that. Yeah. It's so uncommon. But I think generally as a comedian, you're looking for things constantly to sort of surprise the audience. So stuff with your body is always really important. And as a long kind of lumbering man, it lends itself to comedy for sure.
So going back to your body, your health, like as a 28-year-old upwardly mobile man in London, how much time and effort do you put into your wellness, your well-being, your health?
Well, I mean, I guess quite a lot. I mean, I think for me, like the sort of bottom of the pyramid is kind of us training together. Yeah. And it makes, because I'm like, I need to show up for the sessions, I make sure that I'm eating well and trying to get as much sleep as I can.
Yeah.
I think, I'm aware of the things that are maybe not as good for my health, like going on tour is tough physically. You know, the adrenaline late into the night, you do sleep worse, you do get tired. And I'm still learning how to kind of manage that and what my body needs around that. But yeah, I mean, I'm much better than I used to be. I used to be a lot more anxious about my health, for sure. I used to but you know, like I get a blood test fairly frequently. And
So that was going to be my next question, was like, you know, it's all very well.
got one yesterday, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
It's all very well, like, you know, going to the gym and being conscious of what you're eating, but like, how often are you going to the doctor? You know, how often are you getting blood tests, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, to be honest, like it was quite, you know, it's something I've hated and had a massive aversion around. You know, I felt like I've had like quite a lot of health anxiety in the past, but ultimately I just sort of decided, my girlfriend was like, just go. And I did. And so it was quite a big, and also you realize, you know, the big fear with health anxiety is you're like, oh, there's something wrong in my body that's happening now and I can't control it.
Yeah.
And actually, when you go and get a test, you're like, oh no, you know, actually things are fine. And if they're not fine, you can make small adjustments, right, and get them back in order. But I'm quite a big, you know, I'm quite big on like trying to get ahead of things.
Yeah.
Going back to the control obsession in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I've spent time in therapy. I was just very aware of the fact, I was like, I want to be a good father. I want to have like dealt with a lot of my issues. And I feel like I did over a 2-year period and thus stopped going. But yeah, I try to sort of be on top of everything.
And so making the distinction, because I know speaking to men and predominantly working with men, like men are very good at not looking after themselves. When you compare them to women, like, we don't go to the doctor. We almost bury our head in the sand a little bit. Like, why do you think there's that sort of material difference between men and women when it comes to taking care of themselves?
I think community is a big aspect, you know.
Right.
I think a lot of male community or male group activity, I've just written a Substack on this, seems to be built around self-annihilation. There's this strange, and don't get me wrong, like sport and stuff is, you know, that's a good, healthy thing. But so much of it is like, let's drink until we're, you know, a babbling, dribbling mess in the corner. Whereas I would say women generally seem to be a bit better at like creating community and like doing slightly healthier things together, possibly. But I think a lot of men are a lot less honest about their emotions, I think. Like men, like all of us, are scared of death, right? But if you're not being honest about that fear, I don't know, I would associate women with going to the doctor, for example, a lot more readily, and having much more of a support network around that than I would with any of my male friends.
Do you think it's men potentially feel or want to feel or pretend to feel indestructible? Do you think that has an element of it? Like, it'll be fine. Or is it just that we're busy and not really engaged with the bigger picture? I think
we're all mammals. I think we're all scared of death. You know,
is that what you think it boils down to?
I do think that. Yeah, I think men are. Yeah, because I am as well. Even though I would consider myself to be a very like emotionally aware man, I'm scared of weakness. I'm scared of showing weakness.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel comfortable with that, and I wouldn't really feel that comfortable with saying I'm scared unless it was to someone incredibly close to me. So I would imagine it boils down to that. But again, I don't know how representative I am of men, the category of men. I don't know.
So I think one of the great things about having these conversations on a forum like this is that people listening and watching often see themselves thinking exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Right? So they're saying, I don't know how many other men are feeling this way, or I don't think how many other men are aware of this. I know I am, but we don't really talk about it. And I think that's where having open conversations and almost lifting the lid on a lot of those almost stigmatized topics that men deal with in silence, I think is really, really valuable.
But this just makes me think of the film Fight Club, you know, and that like sense of like, first, obviously the first rule of Fight Club, no one talks about Fight Club. I feel like it's the same with masculinity or the same with masculine issues. It's like we have this strange kind of obsession with omerta because we're worried that if we're not keeping it all under wraps, then we'll be rejected or whatever. But I don't know. I certainly don't feel like that when I see a man being vulnerable. And yet, on a level internally, I would feel that judgment.
Yeah.
And it's like I think it comes from you, right? Rather than just being like, but it comes back to the honesty thing. It's like if you're honest and you just express this stuff, then it won't come out in this great big exotic performative display. You're just living authentically to who you are.
How good do you think men are at communicating?
Oh, pretty terrible. In like there are excellent communicating men, but it requires a lot of work, you know. Like I think to get to that level, you have to have a really good understanding of your own triggers and your own interiority. And a lot of men aren't socialized to prioritize that kind of thing. And it's not that they can't do it. I just think it's something that is, you know, women are kind of socialized to be really good at that sort of thing. But yeah, I look at friends who maybe aren't that good at articulating themselves, and like it's not because they're completely incapable. It's just that they don't feel like they need to, I think.
And it does take work.
Huge amounts of work, and also huge amounts of acknowledging that, you know, you might be behaving in a way that's really counterproductive. But those things, you know, it reminds me a bit sort of like alcoholics, like people who are alcoholics, it's often just a massive cover for anxiety or negative feeling. Right? And so it's mopping up a lot for them. And I think if you're a man and you don't realize that like behaving in a strange way is mopping up a lot for you psychologically, I mean, that can be quite devastating, right? Because you're like, oh God, I've got to completely change my way of being in the world. But yeah, I mean, my show is about the fact that I've tried to do that. And even as a progressive, tedious liberal type, like that's been hard for me. You know, there are a lot of blokes who just have so much like internalized shame or difficulty around that, I think.
So something we always like to do, we used to have a green book, but we filled it up. But one of the things we like to do with guests was to get them to almost leave a note or leave something that they, like a quote or a question or something they would like to be remembered by for the next person coming in. So putting you on the spot a little bit.
Asking a question.
It can be anything you want to know. So it's your sort of page in the men's manual.
Yeah.
It's actually a physical manual for future listeners, readers, whatever.
I think this is, I think this is good for anyone who's listening to us to ask themselves and consider. And it's in two parts, if that's all right. The question is, who is the best man you know or have ever known, and why? And then I would encourage you, after you've thought about that, to tell them if they're still here. Because I don't think men feel comfortable enough expressing positive emotion to other men. I think it's an incredibly important thing. And I think it helps foster a sense of community. And I think we're really missing that.
Absolutely love that. Yeah. Okay, so I think we have covered off so much today. Had a lot of fun. I loved doing the on-the-spot impressions.
Well, that's the bloody... Thank you for bloody saying that.
What is it? I want you to say, it's not everything, but it's not nothing.
Well, this podcast, it's not everything, but it's not nothing.
Is that how he does it?
It's not bloody nothing. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
A bit of Kermit there.
Bit of Kermit into Jordan. It's been wonderful. But so you've obviously got a big show coming out. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing it. For the people listening or the people watching, let them know some details about it, where they can come and see it.
Yeah, so I'm playing in the Leicester Square Theatre. I think at the time of recording, the 3 shows that we've got have probably sold out, but we're adding some more. It's in October, but you can get all the details on Josh Berry Comedy on Instagram. That's the best place.
At Josh Berry Comedy on Instagram. And if you're not already, follow this incredibly funny, incredibly talented man. And for those of you who have enjoyed this episode, please comment, like, subscribe. All of your interactions with this post allow us to keep doing it. It allows other people to find us, and it allows the community that we are trying to build here at Men's Manual to grow. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Josh, you've been an absolute treat, and we will see you again next time.